think you were up heading into the week, but the sweep put me up by 2. I also have first pick this week, so
Yeah, I think it's 20, 24,
22.
22.
Yeah.
Luckily, I had 2 easy winners. There's a lot of pain. So you can see it happen in the NFL. But the Bengals, thank you. It's hard to get a favorite to comfortably cover this year. Thank you, Bengals and Joe Burrow. And then thank you, Tom Brady, I was like afraid of old Brady at the end. I was like, all right, it's 21-3 with 8 minutes to go. I have the under. Like 10 years ago, it would be like the Brady would tie it somehow. And I was like, wait, I'm not afraid of this. This under's golden. And that's when I realized that like it's a different Brady now.
Yeah, it's like that's what I'm saying. I'm leaning toward the under on Thursday, but let's get into the week number 8 Sunday 6-pack for my first pick of the week 8 Sunday 6-pack presented by FanDuel. I am going with the Carolina Panthers plus 4.5 at the Atlanta Falcons. And this Atlanta Falcons team, I don't even know if they should be laying a field goal here. They had a nice run, 6-1 against the spread, all came as an underdog. Now they're 4.5-point favorites against this Panther team. But I actually think this Panther team you're gonna get a really good effort out of this Panther team for a couple of reasons. Number one, this team actually is kind of rallying behind Wilkes, and they want him to get the job. So they're a motivated team. They don't feel like they're out of the division, especially after beating Tampa Bay. So they have confidence. They're motivated, and I think they're going to smell blood here in Atlanta. And obviously, everyone's going to look at this and say, okay, but it's PJ Walker. But when you look at PJ Walker, like most quarterbacks, especially like most second and third string quarterbacks, what does he struggle with? Pressure. Obviously, that's what every quarterback struggles with. The lower down the depth chart you are, the more you're likely to struggle under pressure. But this Falcons defense is dead last in the National Football League in generating pressure on the quarterback. 12.7% of opposing dropbacks do the Falcons generate pressure. That is dead last. So from a clean pocket, PJ Walker has a 115 passer rating. That's pretty good. It's just like any other starting quarterback. So I don't think that the Falcons defense is going to bother this Carolina offense much at all and give you the bad PJ Walker here. And also, the Falcons now, they can't cover either. They lost Casey Hayward and they lost AJ Terrell now too. So AJ Terrell and Casey Hayward.
And Jalen Hawkins are starting safety as well.
Yeah. But Hayward and Terrell, that was actually we talked about this coming into the year, like reasons why we like the Falcons and we wanted to bet on them, and they probably were going to be feisty and cover a lot of spreads because maybe they don't get pressure, but at least they could cover on the outside. Now that's kind of compromised. Hayward and Terrell gave up a 62.7 completion percentage and 7.97 yards per attempt. The rest of the defense, 79.5 completion percentage, 8.5 yards per attempt. And those two guys covered about 25% of the targets this year for the Falcons. So having both of them out is a pretty big loss. And this Carolina offense, I think, can do enough here. If you're not going to pressure PJ Walker, he's starting to form a connection with DJ Moore. And the Panthers also, I was still impressed with the way they were playing against that Bucs defense. They were moving the ball on the ground. And that's still a pretty good Bucs defense, even with some guys going down in the game. But they went off for 176 yards and a touchdown on 26 carries. The Falcons are 26th in run defense DVOA, so I think the Panthers still be able to run the ball, and I think they're going to be able to throw the ball because you're not going to get pressure on Walker. And then on the other side, the Panthers defense is better against the run than the pass, which is always ideal when you play the Falcons. They're 13th in run defense DVOA. And this Falcons team is, you have Marcus Mariota. Well, okay, he's not going to really hurt you throwing the ball anyway. But Carolina, 1.76 yards per carry allowed to quarterbacks. That is the lowest mark in the NFL. They allowed just 21 yards on 10 carries to Daniel Jones in week 2, just 26 yards on 12 carries to Kyler Murray in week 4. So this Panthers defense can shut down mobile quarterbacks. They're pretty good against the run. And on offense, you're not going to get pressure on PJ Walker. I don't see how you're giving me 4.5 points here for this Carolina team. So give me oh wait, and let me see 3, 2, 1. And on top of that, like it's funny that I really think this line is like this just because it's like everyone thinks PJ Walker is the worst quarterback ever, but PJ Walker is actually 3-1 against the spread. His average cover is by 20.4 points a game. Last week against Tampa, plus 13.5, 121-3. Then he was plus 10 against the Rams, lost 24-10. So that was only a 4-point miss. November 14th, 2021 at Arizona, plus 7. The Panthers win 34-10. That's a massive swing. And plus 3 at Detroit in November of 2020. And they shut him out 20-0. So PJ Walker has actually been just fine against the spread. 3 outright wins as an underdog. I wouldn't be surprised if the Panthers win this game. I think they're a more confident team. I think they're a more motivated team. And with all Atlanta's injuries, I think Carolina actually might be the better team. So give me Carolina.
Yeah, with these secondary injuries, I mean, you're counting on D. Alford. Like you're hoping the Falcons are hoping D. Alford is healthy enough to play with a hamstring injury at cornerback. That's not a great spot to be in. So yeah, I don't hate it. I think a lot of this will come. I will say that a lot of the game will come down to script. Like the Falcons. And I know they've gotten in the back door a couple times, luckily, but the Falcons want to play from ahead, right? And then they just want to run the ball and then just kind of lean on you. And if you force them to play from behind, it's not going to end well for them. So I do think that the Panthers will need to either get a lead or stay in this early. Otherwise, I think it really favors Atlanta. And if Carolina does come out and jumps on Atlanta, I think it really favors the Panthers, something just to note. But no, I don't mind this at all. The craziest thing, though, is if the Ravens, who are favored, beat the Bucks, and the Raiders, who beat the Saints. Wait, let me say it again. If the Ravens beat the Bucks, and the Ravens are favored, and the Raiders beat the Saints, and the Raiders are favored, then the Panthers will be all alone in first place in the division if they win on Sunday. Solo first place in the division. They just fired their coach and traded their franchise player 2 weeks ago. The NFC is a dumpster fire.
Yeah, man. I really think this Panther team smells blood too. Like I've just been watching them. Like they have like I know you've talked about like the interim coach kind of bump, and it usually wears off, but I still see it for the Panthers at least right now. So yeah, I'm gonna ride them while they're hot.
All right, and by the way, for what it's worth, riding dogs of over a field goal this year has been a very profitable strategy. 44-22 against the spread. Underdogs of over 3 points this year. Part of that is not surprising because scoring is down. So with scoring down, it makes it harder to build margin. But that is the best start for underdogs of over a field goal through 7 games in the last 25 years. All right, let's move on to my first pick in the second overall of the Week 8 Sunday 6-pack presented by FanDuel. Speaking of the dumpster fire NFC and speaking of underdogs of over a field goal, I'm going with the Arizona Cardinals plus 3.5. I think it's what it's at now. Is that plus 3.5? Plus 3.5 at the Minnesota Vikings. This is a perception play here. I think that people think that the Vikings are better than they are, and the people think that the Cardinals are worse than they are. But let's break that down a little. And by the way, this is the only time you'll rarely see me play my boy Cliff, but this is pretty much the ideal time. And I'll get into all this. You have Hopkins. It's still not the second half of the season, and he's on the road as an underdog. And Kingsbury's 15-3-2 against the spread as a road underdog, 83.3%, covering by 10 points per game. He's won 8 straight outright on the road as an underdog. And then Hopkins is back, and for what it's worth, Kyler Murray had his first game with 100-plus quarterback rating last week of the season, and that was with Hopkins back. He looked great. I mean, he targeted him 14 times. He had 10 catches for 103 yards. Murray's a completely different quarterback with him on the field. He opens up the field down the sidelines a little bit, and he's just a reliable third down target. Murray with Hopkins, 9-2. 71% completion percentage, 20 touchdowns, 9 interceptions, 271 yards per game. Without him, he's 3-7, a 64% completion percentage, 11 touchdowns to 6 interceptions, and only 238 yards per game. Arizona overall, with or without Murray, with Hopkins in 27 games, are averaging 27 points. Without him, in 13 games without him, 18.6, almost 10 points fewer per game. So you got Hopkins in there, you got Cliff on the road, you got no Call of Duty distractions for Kyler. And if you look at both of these teams, look, Vikings are coming off of a bye, I get it, but Cardinals are coming off the mini bye. They played on Thursday night, kind of mitigates that. Kirk Cousins, for whatever it's worth, I don't know if it's meaningless or not, but it hasn't been great. It's actually been bad off the bye and with extended rest. But if you look at these two teams' profiles, the Cardinals, if you look at their defense, they rank 19th in EPA per play on the season. But if you just remove week one, okay, why would we remove week one? Well, we talked about that. The game was a farce. They were playing the Chiefs, number one, and they had 6 starters out on defense. So if you remove that, all those injuries, they're eighth since week one on defense. So their defense is trending up. Where are the Vikings? After playing that Packers team who, dropped the 80-yarder, and from week 2 on, where are the Vikings at? 19th, which is where the Cardinals are for the season. So I think that I'll take the Cardinals defense right now over the Vikings defense. The offense also now has Hopkins back. And last week they figured out some things, I think, on the offensive line. Like Rodney Hudson's questionable. If he can't go, they were, then you had Pugh was hurt, and they had a couple guys get hurt. But they put in Billy Price at center and Cody Ford at left guard. Best protection Kyler Murray has had all year. Sean Harlow, their original backup center, was a disaster. Lowest rated center in the league, played like 4 games. So the protection looked a lot better against the Saints. I think that even if Hudson doesn't go, they're in much better shape along the offensive line. And then when we look at the Vikings, I just think that they're a complete paper tiger. I mean, they're 5-1, but they've won 4 in a row, all by 1 possession against the Bears, Lions, Saints, and Dolphins. And that includes 1 backup and a 3rd-string quarterback. Miami outgained them 458 to 234 with multiple backup quarterbacks, 6.3 to 4.7 yards per play. They lost the turnover battles 3-0, and they had 100 penalty yards. Lions outgained them, even yards per play, ton of penalty yards too. Saints, even yards, a yard more per play, lost the turnover battle, 105 penalty yards. Bears dead even yards per play. These are close to coin flip games that the Vikings are winning against backups and bad teams. So I think this sets up for a really good spot for a desperate Cardinals team. They need this game on the road off the mini bye with Hopkins back. Defense is better than people think. Offensive line, I think, is in a better spot than it's been. And this is the spot that you back Cliff. Give me the Cardinals as a road dog.
Yeah, I love this play. I already bet the Cardinals. This is a play that I would have drafted if you hadn't taken it. So I know we went head to head last week, but this week I'll actually just reinforce.
By the way, I only took this first. I would have taken it second, but I was like, Raybon is definitely going to take this if I don't take it first.
So the Cardinals' point differential with and without Hopkins since he was acquired, +6 with him, -4.4 without him. That is a 10.4 point swing. Against the spread differential, +3.4 with Hopkins, -4.4 without Hopkins. That is a 7.8 against the spread differential with and without Hopkins. And then you look at this matchup, and the Vikings defense, 31st in DVOA against number 1 receivers. Well, who you want to target? Hopkins. They're also dead last against tight ends. That's for Ertz. And then on the other side, the Cardinals are top 3 in DVOA against number 1 and number 2 receivers, which is exactly what you need when you're going against Jefferson and Thielen, and they're 6th against the run. So, everything from a matchup standpoint lines up perfectly. The Cardinals have blitzed at the 2nd highest rate. Kirk Cousins' passer rating when he's blitzed is only 68.2. So, everything just lines up perfectly for this Cardinal team, matchup-wise, beyond just the trend of the Cardinals exceeding expectations on the road. So, yeah, I love this. I already bet it, and I would have taken it.
Love it.
All right. For my second pick and the third overall of the Week 8 Sunday six pack presented by FanDuel, I am going with the Washington Commanders +3 at the Indianapolis Colts. And
Back to your boys.
it's my boys. I told you I'm out of Wentz jail. Like I would not bet on this team with Wentz, but I'll do it with Heineke all day. But really, this is a simple one for me. I am getting points with a 6th-round pick making his first pro start. And I think this is what I think is happening with this line. I'm sure there's going to be
Heineke and Walker, by the way. You're off to a hot start with quarterbacks.
Oh, yeah.
I love it. I love it.
But I'm guessing there's probably some big money at hit the Colts or something. I don't know, but here's what I'm thinking is happening with this line, at least from my vantage point. I think you're getting some Ellinger preseason inflation, and you're getting some Bailey Zappi inflation. Because now that people have seen another quarterback who started the year 3rd on the depth chart come in and be better, or at least be better for, look better for a few games than the other 2 guys on the depth chart, now I feel like people think anyone can do that. And Ellinger, in the preseason, he was 24 of 29, 284 yards, 4 touchdowns, no picks, and he had 71 yards and a long rushing touchdown as well. But I went back and watched every single snap, and it was essentially like him playing Madden on rookie. Like the defenders were just leaving receivers wide open. On his long touchdown run, it was like they were playing man coverage and the seas just parted. And then like the last line of defense made the dumbest attempt at a tackle ever. Like, so I'm not reading too much into these preseason numbers. And I get really bad vibes from what's happening in Indianapolis, because it would be one thing if they were transitioning to Ellinger because Frank Reich, kind of, in the back of his mind, he was like, I could probably do so much more with this offense with a mobile guy. And, he had kind of building up the ideas of how he would switch things up and run things. If you had him kind of like Shanahan when he had Jimmy G, but he was, fantasizing about a quarterback like Lance. But what I'm hearing is that this was an Irsay move. And Irsay was the one that essentially said, we need to play this guy. And Irsay essentially drinking the preseason Kool-Aid. And that just spells disaster, because now you're just going to get like a game plan that, first of all, we don't know if Reich even wants to come up with it. Second of all, we don't know how good it's going to be. And we're probably just going to get a game plan where, they're very one-dimensional. They're not really going to do anything down the field. They're just going to do a lot of handoffs, maybe some quarterback keepers and stuff like that. But I think that plays right into Washington's hands. I mean, we've talked about this. Washington is number 4 in DVOA against the run. They're a very good run defense. They're allowing well under 4 yards per carry to opposing running backs over the last 5 weeks. And they also get pressure at a very high rate. So, Ellinger, yes, he can move around, but he also had a 38% pressure to sack rate in the preseason. This guy goes down a lot, and he had a 3.25 average time to throw, 3.25 second average time to throw. That would be longer than everybody except Justin Fields. And, if you hold the ball against this Washington front, they're going to get to you. They're going to sack you. So I just don't think.
And their run D's been good, so you can't really lean on that.
Yeah. So I don't think like what he did in the preseason is sustainable at all. It was fun to watch. Like I admit it. Like, and I'm kind of excited to see him. It's better than watching Matt Ryan out there just waste away his last few games before he just like blows up and turns into a rock, whatever. I don't even know. Like Matt Ryan was done. So I'm not mad at the Colts for doing it, but this is like the hype is way too much here. So I'm getting 3 points against a day 3 pick, making his first start. And by the way, Heineke is kind of the, it's like, okay, Washington has a backup quarterback too. Well, it's a difference. This guy's a backup quarterback who started all of last year, a backup quarterback who started a playoff game. Ellinger is a 3rd string guy who the owner kind of meddled in, and the coaching staff really probably hasn't even been thinking up ways to use him until like now. And Heineke, last 9 games, since November of last season, 7-2 against the spread. One of those against the spread losses was by a half a point. So, Heineke's been doing his thing. He threw about 76% of his passes, 10 yards or fewer beyond the line of scrimmage last week. Well, the Colts 26 in DVOA on short passes. So I don't think Heineke has to do too much here. Washington has a lot of guys, Gibson, Samuel, McLaurin, Robinson, a lot of guys that McKissick, they can put the ball in their hands, get it, just do enough here. I think it's going to kind of be like that Chicago game, like Ellinger's going to hold the ball a lot. He's not going to really do much, and they're going to struggle to run. And I think Heineke can do enough here. Give me the Commanders +3 in Indianapolis.
I had no feel here, and I just can't get backup quarterbacks right. Like Rippon, I know that they probably should have won. And anytime I fade them, sometimes they get a bump on the first time quarterback. Heineke, so maybe I don't know. I don't know what to expect from Ellinger. Heineke is a high variance quarterback, so like, he might give you a pick six here or there, and he's going to make he's going to try to make plays. So there's definitely some variance in his game. But yeah, I don't disagree with the vibes around the Colts, and it doesn't sound or feel like anything's going right there. And if that was an Irsay call, maybe he's back into the carrying around a briefcase full of oxycodone and hydrocodone and $29,000 in cash. I don't know.
You should give it to Matt Ryan. He probably needs it after taking all them damn hits.
Yeah. The offensive line has regressed. It's not a great situation.
You tell me this, like last week, you were telling me like, this is absurd that Denver is, has this kind of line in a situation where they were in. I mean, we're talking about, we are getting points with a third string guy who the owner chose. Like, I don't see, like, I feel like you take this every time. Like, if I lose, I lose. It's like, fine, you got me, Colts. But like, we're getting points for a day 3 third string guy, a third string quarterback. Like, like off the rip. Like, I'm taking that.
Yeah, I don't know why the Colts are giving up too. Like I can't imagine that Ellinger's gonna be any better than Ryan, and like they could easily win this division. Like, I still think the Jags are going to win the division. Like, the Titans, we'll talk about them later, are horrendous. I mean, they won another game where they couldn't score a single point on offense. Their schedule coming up, like, they got Houston. I think they might lose this game, but then they go to the Chiefs. They got the Broncos. They're at the Packers. They got the Bengals, at the Eagles, at the Chargers, Cowboys, at the Jags late. Then their only gimmies are like 2 games against Houston the rest of the way. And so this week's not a gimme, but you look at their schedule. So the Titans' schedule is very difficult. I don't know why the Colts are giving up. Like, you're going to get Leonard back and like just fix some things, but it seems like they're just like it's what division you're in. You can still win this division,
bro. You know what it is? It's that Irsay he's emotional now. Like, he was emotional since that collapse last year, but. Besides, it's not just that they wanted to beat the Jaguars and do it in Jacksonville, but his real thing is like every year he's like, we got to beat the Titans. We got to beat the Titans. So the fact that they lost to the Titans, he just feels like, okay, we're not good enough to win the division. We don't deserve to win the division. And now he's doing this is like John Mara when they inserted Geno Smith. It's like, you're going to regret it really quickly. It's like, so yeah, I'm gonna take it. It would be one thing if like he was just playing his ass off and like Reich was like, I need a mobile quarterback. He's been thinking up plays for 5 weeks now, but that's not the case. So
yeah,
give me Washington.
All right, for my second pick and the 4th overall, the Week 8 Sunday 6-pack, I'm going with the Detroit Lions +3.5 at home against the Miami Dolphins. Last week the Lions got blown out by Dallas, and I played them +7.5 and +7. I would have made that bet again. Like, I think my projected final score was 10, even though they turned it over 5 times. The yardage was even. They were going in at the 1-yard line to take the lead towards the end of the 4th quarter. Swift ended up playing, and Amon-Ra St. Brown, who I think was like, he needs to play in this game, and he was going to. He got spotted by one of the spotters for concussion, didn't have a concussion, and was out in like the first play of the game. massive. They still move the ball. But I think the market has finally oversold the Lions. Like, what happened to everyone always wanting to bet the Lions at home as a dog over and by the way, we got another dog here over a field goal, continuing that trend. But if you look at what the Lions have done this year, it's like they put up 35 at home on the Eagles. They put up 36 at home on the Commanders. They should have won at Minnesota. Lose on 2 fluke touchdowns late because of some questionable fourth down decisions. Then they put up 45 against Seattle, which, by the way, without Brown and without Swift, a 48-45 loss to Seattle now doesn't look as bad. Like, Seattle is legit. So then they go to the Patriots, outdoor pumpkin golf, hurt, and they lose in a bad spot, playing New England off of a loss and blah, blah, blah. That's it. Like, that's the one game where I'm like, I'm really worried about this team. Then, against the Cowboys, one of the best defenses in the NFL, they showed well for me after losing Brown and not having Swift. And so I like them coming home here, and I assume, I'm 99.9% sure Amon-Ra St. Brown will play and will be 100% healthy. There's a really good chance DeAndre Swift plays. I don't know, really good.
Yeah, he should play. He's off the injury report completely, so he should play.
But I thought he was going to play last week, so I'm not going to say that.
No, that was no. He was. It was pretty. They said he was gonna, like, it was pretty doubtful. He was practicing, but they were kind of like, we're gonna continue to hold him out to make sure he's 100%. But this week he's not even on the injury report on Wednesday, and he had a full. So that he's pretty much guaranteed to be back. Like, if you take him off the injury report completely.
Well, perfect. So yeah, when their offense has been fully healthy this year indoors, they've destroyed, and I think that they should put up a ton of points here. Great offensive line, we know that, and now you're gonna have all of your weapons against a Miami secondary that is depleted. I mean, Byron Jones, PUP list still. He might be out for the year at this point. Nick Needham's on IR. Trill Williams is on IR. And then Brandon Jones, who's like, you use him as like your Swiss Army knife pass rusher. He just went to IR. You're like 5th and 6th string. Crossan and Kodu, they missed last week with injuries. Xavier Howard is not even fully healthy and he's playing. He's graded out horrendously. He just doesn't look right. He's in and out of the lineup throughout the game. I think he's the 80th rated cornerback this year. And then you got your boy Igbenogany is who you're relying on out there on the outside.
Very good pronunciation.
And he's awful. He's like, he's one of the worst rated quarterbacks in the NFL. So there's no reason why the Lions shouldn't move the ball. Will here. I lean over here, by the way, but so then you look at the Miami offense and I think that people overrate the Miami offense a little bit. Like Tyreek Hill and Waddle and Tua, and they've had injuries at quarterback. But in the games that Tua has started, they haven't surpassed 21 points in 4 of those 5 starts. The one that they did, they scored like 28 points in the fourth quarter against the Ravens. And, they're 4-3 with miracle wins like that they shouldn't have against the Bills and the Ravens. They could have lost to the Steelers at home last week. And they only scored 16 points against that defense. They got a couple picks late, but they easily could have lost to Kenny Pickett, even though he threw 3 picks.
Well, 2 through 5. It's just none of them can't catch any of them.
There's something off with the offense that I can't put my finger on. Now they're going to have success against this Lions defense, which isn't good, but I liked what I saw last week off of the bye from a number of rookies that they're now using. So Hutchinson had the best game of his career. He had a couple sacks early that were like scheme based, but these were
they moved him around, right? Like
they're moving him around.
Yeah.
And he was taking advantage of matchups and he beat his man for a couple of really big plays. Kirby Joseph, their rookie safety, is playing well. They put him in the last couple of weeks. Josh Paschal, they used him at defensive tackle. He didn't compile a lot of stats, but was huge in that game. Went back and watched some of that after reading about him. And then Malcolm Rodriguez, their other rookie linebacker, I think is going to be a hell of a player. He's been playing. People have known about him from Hard Knocks. But they have a bunch of rookies in here, and they looked so much better last week on defense across the board. So I think that they fixed some things after the bye. And Mr. Jeff Okudah, welcome to the NFL, had his best game by far as a pro last week. He looked really good. Maybe he's finally starting to get it, and he's trending up. I like the way some of the safeties are playing. So I think that this Lions defense will keep getting better. Maybe the rookies hit a wall later in the year, but I don't think that they're as bad as some of their numbers suggest. And this Dolphins offense, something is just off with it. And I think that the Lions offense will be able to cook. So I'll gladly take the +3.5 at home with Detroit when everyone seems to be jumping off the bandwagon. They could have won that game last week in Dallas, even without Amon-Ra playing, if they don't fumble at the 1 yard line on 1st and goal. Who knows? Dallas goes down the field maybe, but the Lions off defense was playing well. So I 24-6, very misleading final score last week. I like the Lions here.
Yeah. Looking at the way they match up, Miami likes to play man coverage. They like to blitz well, and they're terrible in defending short passes. They're bottom 3 in DVOA against short passes. So that favors Goff. The Lions are top 10 in efficiency against man coverage, but 25th against zone. So unless the Dolphins switch up their whole scheme, that favors the Lions offense. So yeah,
you got home golf indoors.
It's probably gonna be a shootout. Either way. So yeah, I don't mind the Lions here at all. All they did was cover until they stopped covering, but think they could get back to it here.
This will be the healthiest they've been in since they were on those covering streaks.
Yeah, I mean, we hope. We hope.
Yeah, we assume.
Because it's Wednesday and Hawkinson didn't practice. I don't know why. But Swift is a go. Amon-Ra is limited, but he should be fine. Reynolds was a DNP. But it's Wednesday, so they all could be fine tomorrow.
I don't understand, by the way, this new concussion. Like it's you didn't get a concussion, but you stay in concussion protocol. It is very confusing to me.
Well, so
why do they say you haven't had a concussion? Like they should say we don't know yet. Like you're not in. How can you be in concussion protocol if they rule out you had a concussion?
But from my understanding, I'm blanking on the medical term. But
aphasia or something.
Aphasia,
whatever.
yeah. So when you have that, essentially, like that in itself is an issue and can lead to like delayed onset symptoms and things of that nature. And so essentially, it's more so like they're calling it concussion, but really it's that anytime somebody has that aphasia, it seems like they're just being cautious and kind of ruling them out of the game.
No, I get that. I get that but I'm saying the next week, then they say we ruled out a concussion.
Mm-hmm.
And then, but you stay in concussion protocol for a couple of days. It's very odd to me.
I think it's just for the delayed onset symptoms. Cause a lot of guys do like, they'll pass the test, come back in the game and then report symptoms like Monday, Tuesday or Wednesday. So I think
that's fair.
I could be wrong, but okay. For my third and final pick, the 5th overall of the week 8 Sunday 6-pack presented by FanDuel, I am going with the San Francisco 49ers -1.5 against the Los Angeles Rams in LA. And I don't bet road favorites very often, but
this is not a road favorite.
Exactly. I always make an exception for Niners versus Rams. And
I think I've gotten this the last 2 years. I've gotten this ahead of you. I was going to take this obviously if you didn't, but
yeah.
I love my road Niners at home against the Rams.
Oh yeah, it's going to be. I mean, let's just talk about why we love this spot so much. So you have Kyle Shanahan going against Sean McVay, and he's just always had his number. It's like the one coach McVay can't really figure out. I mean, even when they finally beat him in the NFC Championship game, they needed the drop pick, they needed the late interception, and they still didn't cover the spread. So the 49ers have now covered 6 straight games against the Rams, including the postseason. And all time, Shanahan is 9-3 against the spread against Sean McVay. And
the 2 of the non-covers came in when the Rams went to the Super Bowl back in 2018, when the Niners were terrible and had like CJ Beathard at quarterback, for what it's worth.
Yeah. So, it's like this current iteration of the Niners pretty much is almost the auto cover against this Rams team. And so the thing I think when you want to handicap this is like, okay, the trend, and a lot of people might just stop there and just say, okay, that's the trend, I'm betting it. But I'm trying to look at, okay, what can McVay do to adjust? What can go wrong here? And in the NFC Championship game, I thought they did some interesting things. They kind of I think they sold out against the run a little bit more. You know, it's not something the Rams usually do. You know, kind of loaded boxes and things like that. But like whatever they did, nothing carried over to this year. Like week 4, 24-9 49ers. They outgained them by almost 100, 327 to 257. So about 70 yards. They outgained them. And what I think is concerning if you're the Rams is the 49ers didn't even have to put up a huge number on the ground. You know, in this week 4 win, they usually kind of bludgeon the Rams on the ground and they go heavy, and you know, the Rams kind of hesitate to load the box, and it's just, you know, they just control the ball, but they didn't really have to do that. And I think the issue for the Rams is they're going to lose the matchup on both sides of the trenches, in the trenches on both sides of the ball. On when the Rams are on defense, despite having Aaron Donald, despite blitzing at the 10th highest rate in the league, the Rams have generated pressure 12.9% of the time. If that sounds familiar, that's because it's about 0.2% higher than the Falcons. The Rams are 31st in the league in pressure. So if you can't generate pressure, then you're not going to stop this offense, because you have to pressure Jimmy Garoppolo, make mistakes and rush throws over the middle and do things. His passer rating under pressure is 60.2. The passer rating from a clean pocket is 106.2. And if you just try to blitz him, well, he's got a 102 rating when he's blitzed, a 93 rating when he's not blitzed. So he's better against the blitz, and he has been for a number of years now. So schematically, it doesn't match up. They're not winning the battle in the trenches, even with, you know, some star power. Trent Williams wasn't even in that game in the first matchup. He wasn't available, and the Niners still averaged 6.8 yards per play on offense. Jared Goff, again, 3, 2, 1. Jimmy Garoppolo did not get sacked in that game, and he was only pressured on 10%, 10.7% of his dropbacks. From a clean pocket, he had 24 attempts, 10 yards per attempt, touchdown, no picks. That's what's going to happen. And, you know, okay, Kyle Juszczyk, that's a big loss, obviously key to a lot of things they do. But when you kind of contrast that with, okay, well, they didn't have Trent Williams in the first matchup and they still were fine and they had no issues. Like, you'd much rather have Trent Williams than Juszczyk, even though they're both great players. Williams is still going to be more impactful. And then,
are you worried about Debo not playing?
Yeah. So yeah, I was going to get to that. So Debo, it's kind of the same thing. It's like, okay, Debo, obviously a big loss, but you can now you have McCaffrey. So like, you're just kind of swapping in another, even if you don't have Debo, you can do a lot of the things you do at Debo with McCaffrey. So like, you know, yes, there are some key injuries here, but it's not a field goal. It's a 1.5. It's not a road game. There's going to be more red than blue and yellow in those stands. And, you know, this is a team that just has the Rams number every year. And then the other side of the ball, I didn't even get to the, you know, when the Rams have the ball, their offensive line, I mean, Noteboom, IR, Edwards, IR, Shelton, IR, Ingram, IR, Bruss, IR. They're going to start their 7th different offensive line combination. They're facing a Niners defense, you know, that Bosa is healthy. They're second in pressure rate at 27.6%. And Matthew Stafford, he hasn't even been great from a clean pocket this year, just an 89.9 rating. But under pressure, that drops to 69.7. And the Niners don't have to blitz a ton to get their pressure. You know, they're just 18th in blitz rate. And, you know, Stafford is another one that kills the blitz, 115 rating when he's blitzed, but 75 rating when he's not. So on that side of the ball, the Niners match up well as well. And, you know, Cooper Kupp, he's going to get his, but I don't think the Rams are going to be able to run the ball, averaging just 0.88 yards before contact per carry are the Rams. That's 29th in the NFL. And the Niners are number 2 in yards per carry allowed to running backs at 3.36. They're 5th in defensive rushing DVOA. And, you know, the only thing you can say is, okay, well, McVay's coming off a bye, but he's 1-2 against the spread in his last 3 off a bye. So it's not like this is some automatic, okay, McVay has extra time to prepare. You know, it's guaranteed cover. Yeah, I still like the Niners in this matchup. I'm going to continue to bang the Niners side when they play the Rams until the Rams give me a reason not to.
Yeah, the one thing I'd be worried about is it's hard for me to rate the 49ers defense, which I think is one of the top 3 units in the NFL with all these injuries. Like, you already have Kinlaw on IR. Now Armstead isn't practicing. Like, your depth in the interior is starting to get really thin. Ebukam also didn't practice today with the Achilles injury. Greenlaw didn't practice. And, you have some secondary injuries. Armstead's really important, especially without Kinlaw. I mean, they moved him to defensive tackle this week last year, and they went from the 15th rated defense against the run to number 1 EPA per rush the rest of the way. This year, without him, they are 24th against the run, and they're 8th with him. 64 rushing yards per game in the 3 games that he's played. Only 1 rushing touchdown allowed. 115 rushing yards allowed in the 4 games without him. 6 rushing touchdowns. So, yeah, that's the only thing I'd be a little bit worried about. I mean, they were torched last week. It was one of their worst defensive performances of the past 25 years. So, yeah, hopefully 1 or 2 of those guys can play, because the depth is getting a little thin for this 49ers defense. But, yeah, depth taxes and Shanahan over McVay. All right, for my 3rd pick and the 6th overall, the Sunday 6-pack, I'm going with the Green Bay Packers plus 11 against the Buffalo Bills. I'm repping the Packers shirt. We are going to try to catch the falling knife. And for what it's worth, what gave me a little bit more confidence in this bet, because it's scary, is I'm 7-0 in Packers games this year. So I'm like, all right, I think I have a read. I haven't bet them yet. It's mainly been unders and betting against them. But I think that this is the spot, despite the fact the Bills are off of a bye, despite the fact that the Packers are playing their 4th stadium in 4 weeks. This is, I'm sure you've heard this by now, this is the first time Rodgers will be a double-digit dog in his career. But I think this is a perfect buy low, sell high spot. It's with a desperation Packers team on the road with no one giving them a chance now. Against, the Bills, I could see them coming out a bit flat. I know it's going to be crazy, but off a bye, playing like he just beat the Chiefs. I could see this like a slow start for the Bills. Whatever. If you're a trends person, 3 straight losses and non-covers for the Packers, even though I graded 2 of those games as wins, not last week, but the 2 previous. Playing a team that has won 3 straight and covered 3 straight. If you go back past 35 years, you're at about 60%. Teams that have lost 3 straight and not covered 3 straight, catching 10 plus past 30 years, right about 60%, right in line with just buy low, sell high philosophy. And I think that this is probably the low point of the Packers market. Let's get into why I think that. And for what it's worth, Rodgers he's 3-0 against the spread catching. This is just, I find interesting. 3-0 against the spread catching more than 6 points in his career during the regular season. All 3 came in this exact same weekend. This Halloween weekend. Last year he beat the 7-0 Cardinals, throwing to like Winfrey, who he might have to throw to this week, by the way. 2018, he went on the road against the 7-0 Rams, who went on to the Super Bowl, and he lost by 2 on a late field goal. And then in 2010, he beat the 9-0 Jets. He beat the 6-0 Jets 9-0. I don't know what went on in that game. So look, and they might have a receiving core this week that is scary. I mean, it might be hobbled Sammy Watkins, Romeo Doubs, Amari Rodgers, Winfrey again, maybe Torrey.
Yeah, it's probably going to be Torrey. Winfrey didn't get elevated. But Watson is actually practicing, so that is a positive.
Yeah, we'll see. And, Lazard was in a sling. It's like, it's scary. Play. Yeah, I would assume he's not. But we'll see if they can do anything. I think that they're going to try to run the ball and they'll try to throw to their backs more. But from a matchup perspective, this is not the worst thing for the Packers. The Bills have been a bad running team all season. They are 28th DVOA, 29th EPA per rush. And that's how everyone is just moving the ball on the Bills. So if the Bills want to come out here and try to run it, I'm the Packers, fine. If you want Josh Allen not to throw it, that's fine. So we'll see if the Bills want to do that. But the Bills don't do that. The Bills throw the ball. They feel like they could throw on anybody. The Packers, by the way, top 10 pass defense. And they are, they're first at success rate. And if you first in drive success rate on the season, on defense, their defense is probably one of the few that you were like, okay, let's see what they got against the Bills. You know, one of the best lockdown corners in the NFL. They have some guys who can generate pressure. Rashawn Gary's having a hell of a year. So this is actually a good matchup for them. The offensive line situation last week was also a mess. You had like Bakhtiari get ruled out at the last second. So, you know, Yosh had to start his first game at right tackle, not his normal left tackle spot. If they're practicing there all week, they had to flip all these guys around. So you hope that Bakhtiari's at left tackle, Jenkins is at left guard, which is what they think the best situation could be to kind of alleviate some of the pressure Rodgers has been on. But what do the Packers have been doing this year? They have no explosiveness, which everyone can see. They're actually 6th in success rate on offense. And so they're moving the ball much more than people think. And if you look at some of the results, they have like 400 yards, 420 yards. Like last week was a disaster. But the rest of the season, they're 6th in success rate. They're 32nd in EPA per play on late downs, which tends to be higher variance, not as predictive as early downs. They're also dead last in the NFL in 4th down conversion rate. So I don't think the offense is as bad as everyone is making it. And what the Bills always do very well defensively is they take away explosive plays. So I just think that from a matchup point of view, this sets up for the Packers hanging around here. The Bills aren't a run team. Packers good pass D. The Packers they're moving the ball well, and they're doing it just like Rodgers figuring it out, running it, short passes. That's what they're going to have to do it. And that's kind of how you have to move the ball against the Bills, also against their pressure. So I think from a scheme perspective, this matchup actually works out fairly well for the Packers. Also think we're buying low on them here. And the Bills have been great as favorites. Allen is 12-5-2 and laying more than 6 points, but that's hard to do this year. Remember, scoring environment is down. Dogs of 4+ points are 37-18 this year against the spread, 67%. So I'll go to battle with Rodgers catching 11 here on the road in what I think is not the worst matchup in the world for the Packers, who also haven't been as bad as they've looked at times. So give me Green Bay.
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack. No pun intended here. First of all, I can't believe you just went into a rant about the Packer defense when, like, if we were on the other side of this, you would have been like, yo, but look who they faced. Justin Fields, Daniel Jones, the New England backups.
Fair,
Jets,
but did we not think the Packers pass team was going to be good this year?
No, we did. But so like I have, let's see, 1, 2.
Like you're going to put Alexander on Diggs.
5, 6. I have 7 trends against the spread supporting the Packers popping up for me in Action Lab. So like it's definitely one of these spots where it's like it's an uncomfortable play. It's probably the right play. But it, at the same time, there are some things I'm concerned with. Number one was you just mentioned Alexander.
They're 11-point dogs. There definitely should be some things that we should be concerned about.
No. I mean, like, so Alexander, like, I don't know what's going on with him because, he's got this reputation. We all love him. We think he's great. He got paid, obviously. But every time we see him, like, against the team with a great number 1 receiver, things are not going well. Like, first, it was like they didn't shadow him in the opening game, and Justin Jefferson goes crazy. And then last week, he does shadow Terry McLaurin, and McLaurin catches a go-ahead touchdown. He catches the game-sealing catch.
Those were ridiculous, like fluky throws. Come on.
I mean, yeah, I'm just saying, like, I don't know if Jair
Alexander
a prayer
from Heineke
is gonna like do anything against Diggs. And I also this Packers offense. I mean, the trend is disturbing. Like, yeah, they have decent metrics on the year, but like, just listen to it because you mentioned like, okay, they're still gaining yards. Well, let's start with New England in week 4. Okay, 443 yards. Next week against the Giants, 301. Next week against the Jets, 278. Next week against the Commanders, 232. So like, that is a very disturbing downward trend here. So like, I get it. It's you can't bet the Bills in this spot. But yeah, I don't think I can.
Well, like you said, they've been trending down. I'm trying to catch the falling knife. I could be wrong. What gave me confidence is that I've had a good read on them all year. And I went back and looked, and I was 7-0 in their games. So So hopefully we can go to 8-0. But I think that this is the spot to buy them. And like, yeah, there's some matchup things that I like, and this is just no one's giving them a shot. You'll probably pull out some new wrinkles this week on offense. So we'll see. Let's go Pack. Go Pack, go.